Hey, I'm Alex Rackler from Board Game Co., and in today's episode of Play This Not That, we are comparing Blood Rage and Mezo. In Play This Not That, we pick two games that have some degree of similarities. I go over some of the basics, some of the reasons they're similar, what they're about, and then I compare and contrast them, and then I tell you which one I think you should be playing. Now, it does not mean that the loser's a bad game, not by a long shot. Very often they're both good games, but at the end of the day, we only have so much time to play, and I'm all about finding those games that have some overlap and picking the best game for you and your group and your collection and your time. Now, Blood Rage is an epic area control game by Eric Lang. It's been out for a few years now, maybe 4 or 5 years, I have to double check the date, but it is all about Vikings and gods and conquest and destruction and fighting and battles, and honestly, so is Mezo. The whole point of this is picking similar games. Now, Mezo is a more Aztec-themed game, but it's, again, conquest and gods and fighting and battles. Now, both these games take place over 3 ages. Both these games have a heavy focus on gods and or creatures as a major focal point for the actual battle. Both these games start with a province destroyed. Both of these games have very smallish maps with easy access to all areas, and both these games take place, both these games are big area control games. There's a lot of basic similarity when you look at these games and try to figure out what space they have in your collection. They're all about trying to figure out this optimal strategy of combining different things going on to maximize your power so that you can win that next conquest and get that extra ability, get that extra edge in a game, get that little bit of something else that's going to push you over the edge, that give you a competitive advantage. They're both really about points despite being heavily combat oriented. At the end of the day, both these games are not decided by who won or who got battle points. It's decided by who had the most victory points at the end of the game, at the end of 3 ages. So they kind of disguise themselves as these heavily fighting, combat aggressive games, while in reality being a Euro game, which is all about numbers and crunching and trying to figure out what is that pathway to success, what is that pathway to victory that you're going to get when you play these games. Now, they are both an absolute blast to play. They both make you feel powerful. They both make you feel like you're really doing things and you're really like combining these abilities and your gods and or powers that you get for your clan or your team, and really drives home this feeling of, well, feeling powerful. At the end of the day, though, in today's episode of Play This Not That, we are picking Blood Rage as the game to pick. And honestly, it's not even close. Blood Rage is insanely amazing. Blood Rage is, I mean, really they're both amazing, but let's cover why. Let's cover the differences, the nuances of why Blood Rage is so much better to me than Mezo. And don't get me wrong, if I didn't have Blood Rage, I would highly recommend Mezo. I would say Mezo's a great game. Mezo was a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, after multiple games, I kind of just felt Mezo was a game that I would rather play Blood Rage. They're both good games, but I couldn't see a scenario where I'd ever pick Mezo off the shelf when I have a game like Blood Rage in my collection. And so let's cover those nuances, those differences. Now, to begin with, the rules, and it's a big one. It's again all of these small details. Really, they're both good games. But in Mezo, it kind of feels like the rules were built there to put there and to create a game. In Blood Rage, it feels like the game filtered down to the rules. It feels more elegant, feels more streamlined, more masterful. There's not a single rule I could pick out in Blood Rage where I would say, you know what, that rule is unnecessary. That rule is just to add depth, to add complexity. Blood Rage feels like one cohesive game. It doesn't feel like a set of rules. Mezo, unfortunately, while being a great set of rules and a great game, Mezo at times does feel like a set of rules. There are multiple small nuances to the game where it doesn't feel like one cohesive beast, like one cohesive engine, but rather it feels like you have to add rules to create a game. Now, this is part of the game creation process, obviously. A game without any rules is nothing. So you kind of come up with a structure and you add rules and you iterate. But in Mezo, it doesn't feel like they finalized it to a beast that works perfectly on its own. It feels like they left rules in there for the sake of having complexity, rather than looking at every single rule and saying, does this add to the game? Does it add to the nuance? Does it add to the strategy? So just to give you one example, and there are a few, just to give you one example, in the battle sequence, there's this whole, each region has a battle in Mezo, but one specific region in that battle has a whole different set of rules. It has a whole different structure to how you resolve that battle. And it doesn't feel like it adds anything to the game. It feels like it adds a level of strategy that doesn't come naturally. It comes from adding rules. It comes from throwing in these constrictions of how you have to play the game. And sure, that does add strategic choice, but it didn't feel natural. It didn't feel smooth and streamlined. Blood Rage is smooth, streamlined from the beginning of the game through the end of the game. Everything feels like it meshes well together. Everything feels like it syncs up. Everything feels amazing and cohesive. Cohesive is that word that I'm looking for. Blood Rage feels cohesive, and Mezo feels like a good game. There is a difference there. For my second difference, and this kind of ties into the first one, is both of these games at the end of the day are about number crunching. Both of these games, at the end of the day, they're Euro games disguised as Ameritrash. Now, that's something that might get a lot of comments of, no, it's not Euro, it is Euro. Either way, the point is more that while there is luck, of course, in these games, they are ultimately both optimization strategies. They're both games where you're given a set of things that can optimize your gameplay, and you have to figure out the numbers that work together in the best way to achieve that victory. But in Mezo, it feels like it's about the numbers. In Mezo, it feels like you are constantly trying to find that aspect that works that gives you that little bit of extra +1 or +3 or +2 or -4. It feels like you are calculating out the numbers, whereas in Blood Rage, it just feels like it's about power. It feels like it's about abilities. It feels like you have this card that will do that, and this card is going to add +6 to the battle, but it doesn't feel like +6. It doesn't feel like you are grabbing some extra number to add to your win. It feels like you got one over your opponent. It feels like your clan had an edge. It doesn't feel like it's about the numbers. It feels like it's about the abilities. It feels like it's about the power. I remember hearing an excellent quote about board games once, that essentially board games are just a way to get a bunch of geeks to do math and not realize it. And that's true. It's basically accounting in disguise. But the key word there is disguise. It has to feel like it's in disguise. If you realize that everything is about adding up the numbers, then it takes away from that immersion, it takes away from that enjoyment of the experience. And again, when I play Blood Rage, I feel like I am a Viking warrior combining abilities and taking it out of my opponents and somehow getting in that win to destroy them or whatever it may be. When I play Mezo, I feel like I'm an Aztec god and 4 + 6 = 10. It is a different level of immersion in the game. It is a different level of cohesiveness. That's the word I said before, cohesiveness. It is a different level of strategic choice, strategic depth, and it makes Blood Rage feel like an amazing experience, and Mezo feels like a good game. And finally, for my third main difference why I choose Blood Rage over Mezo, it is asymmetry. Both of these games have a degree of asymmetry in them. Both of these games have a degree of developing your nation and your race and your abilities. But in Mezo, it doesn't feel... There's a difference between being asymmetrical and feeling asymmetrical. In Mezo, they gave a bunch of gods different cards. Every god has a deck of 5 cards. That's the way it works in Mezo. They're all a bunch. Each god has a deck of 5 cards plus its own unique ability. Now, the unique ability is not that bad, but it's not. While it's not that bad, it also doesn't feel like it's that much of a distinction. It doesn't feel like it does that much of a job of making your god feel different than other gods. And in the 5 cards that they give you, do no attempt at really making you feel different. It comes back to that same thing. It's a bunch of numbers. It's a bunch of small differences that they do the worst possible thing. They give asymmetry with no possible ability to recollect what's going on. Meaning every god, if I'm playing against you, your god has 5 unique cards, my god has 5 unique cards. I can't possibly know the cards you have left, and I can't remember it because it's not unique. There's not some defining thing where I know that clan has that ability, that god has that ability. There's small nuances in the numbers of, well, this guy can recall one, and this guy can do this, but they don't come together in a way that makes it easy to recall the other player's information. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds. Not only is it not standardized, meaning at least if it's standardized, I know what's going on in the game. I know that my 5 cards reflect your 5 cards, so if you've played these 2, you have those 3 left, and I can plan around it. But it's not only is it not standardized, it's asymmetrical without feeling like it's asymmetrical. So there's no possible way for me to kind of figure out what you have left, but it also doesn't make you feel like you're powerful. It doesn't make you feel, when you play other games, when you play play Kemet, every power section feels like a distinct area of power. When you play Blood Rage, each god's specific type of cards feel unique. The Loki strategy feels very different than the Tyr strategy, feels very different than Thor's cards. Each section, each branch of the cards in Blood Rage feels like that god. In Mezo, it doesn't feel like there's any reason why one god has one nuance of an ability different than another. And that lack of asymmetry, again, still a good game, still an enjoyable experience, but does not compare to Blood Rage. At the end of the day, in Play This Not That, play Blood Rage. Do not play Mezo. It doesn't mean Mezo is bad at all. If I didn't have Blood Rage, I would enjoy Mezo. If you offered to play Mezo with me, I'd happily pick it up and play. But in my collection, I will sadly be getting rid of Mezo. I will be doubling down on Blood Rage. Just got some of the Kickstarter goodies from the newest Kickstarter recently. Looking forward to getting those guys to the table. Blood Rage is an insanely amazing game. I highly recommend giving it a shot. If you like Kemet, if you like Mezo, if you like Cyclades, if you like, I mean, there are a handful, not handful, if you like Cry Havoc, there's more and more games. If you like that tight area control style of game where it's really kind of area control, but kind of Euro and kind of Ameritrash, if you like that conflict heady fighting style of game, Blood Rage is my favorite #1 game of all time, and it is just an insanely enjoyable experience. I highly recommend it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know in the comments down below, what did you think? Did you play Mezo? How was it? Did I not get a feel for it? Am I biased, or is this kind of actually a general opinion? I don't really know. There's not a lot of content out there about Mezo yet. The ratings are good, but not amazing, which was kind of my experience with it. It was good, but not amazing. Let me know in the comments down below if you like this video, if you like this type of content. Go ahead and subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, comment, like. It really helps grow the channel. Other than that, it's Alex from Board Game Co., and until next time, have a good one.